So let's now put on our pessimist hats and tell me, Steven, who are you looking at as your first major dropper or faller, I should say, in fantasy value?
Well, I'm going to go with Thomas Hurdle in San Jose. He doesn't have a lot to work with right now, and losing Timo Meyer in that group, this is a team that's just kind of focused on trying to get that first overall pick, or in reality, probably closer to third or fourth. But I feel like, man, it's got to be tough when you lose a guy as important to that lineup as Timo Meyer, and then you got to play the rest of the season knowing like there's not much going for you at this point. So I'm not really expecting much out of anyone kind of in San Jose, and that includes Thomas Hertl.
Yeah, good pick. My first follower is Eric Gustafson in the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it's just very plain to see his time on ice with the Washington Capitals this season, 2022. Leafs in 2 games, 11.57. So he's just pure depth now. It's one of those, I wonder how he felt about the trade. He's going to a team with a better chance to win a Stanley Cup, theoretically. But his role is greatly reduced. He's almost a seventh defenseman so far. And that team has 10 healthy defensemen, 9 in the NHL, even 10 if you count Jordy Ben with the Marlies. So there's just so much competition for playing time. It's a great problem to have in real life, which is what the Leafs design was here. But for fantasy, it's an absolute killer to Gustafson. It makes him, I think, pretty much droppable unless he somehow suddenly gets a chance to take Morgan Riley's spot on the first power play. So far, that hasn't happened. So big time death knell for his value, that trade.
I'm going to go with Tyson Barrie as my next pick. And this is someone we going in Edmonton. And, he's got McDavid, he's got Draisaitl to pass to him, both 5 in the power play. Now in Nashville, he doesn't. And that's something where Barry's always been able to put up a lot of points. And, he played on some pretty poor Colorado Avalanche teams. But I feel like, he still had some pretty like you look at Colorado, he had McKinnon setting him up in the power play, and you look at Toronto, he had Matthews and he had Nylander and Marner, and then you go to Edmonton, you got two of the best players in the world. So then you go to Nashville where they don't have that. His fantasy value is going to take a tank here. And, he was on the DFO live show on trade deadline day, and it seemed like it caught him by surprise being involved in that trade. But this is someone where he's going to have a lot less competition. Like obviously Roman Yossi is as good as he is, but I feel like, he's should have a lot of ice time for the duration of his time there. And I think he's going to be very important, but from a fantasy perspective, that's a loss.
For sure. And especially even if he was just going to the regular version of the Predators, but he's going to a Predators team that has stripped away all its veteran pieces as well. So even worse for his value. My second, I know he had a big goal on Monday night, but I'm going to go Max Domi. And it's very similar to what happened last year. You get traded to a team that's going to use you as depth. So you're still a useful addition, but you're just not going to be playing as much. So Max Domi, first liner in Chicago, playing with Patrick Kane. So far, looking like he's going to be a third line center in Dallas. That's his early deployment. So it's more just the depth add, and it hurts him in fantasy. Helps in real life, but you're just not going to see Max Domi get the same opportunities in Dallas. And that's why he's one of my followers. I'm going to sneeze. Steven, I feel a sneeze coming. So if it happens, I apologize. Oh, wait. No, it's going. Okay. You're up.
Perfect. And to wrap up from my section, I'm going to go Phoenix Copley from the LA Kings. This is a guy that it was kind of like I had a Kings writer reach out to me and say, man, like he's the best goalie in our team right now. And this was a few months ago. I'm like, well, that's a really poor situation to be in. Statistically, it's been true. But now that they've got Korpisalo in there, who I have mixed feelings about it because Korpisalo's got a pretty significant injury history, and he's been injured this year, I think twice. So this is something where I don't want to write off Copley yet, but he's from a win perspective, he's getting them, and I've picked him up in fantasy. Obviously, from an analytical situation, no, he hasn't been that great, but I think he's going to get a lot less ice time now. In theory, you've got a guy in Korpisalo who was playing above his weight in Columbus, who, again, when he's healthy, is going to be very important to this team. And we'll probably get the bulk of the starts here, but obviously not a situation I think the Mr. North Pole man himself is going to be too thrilled about.
That's right. It's funny. My last faller, he could have been a big riser based on a couple of scares we had with Brad Marchand last week, where he got hurt 2 games in a row, and it looked like it could have been bad. First game he returned, second game he left, but then he was fine and returned to the next game. So because Marchand is okay, Tyler Bertuzzi is now one of my followers. Again, just a bigger role with the Red Wings, especially as they were showcasing him before the trade, and with a similar situation to Max Domi. It's just Bertuzzi's on the third line in Boston. The Bruins are just too good. They're stacked. And especially the way those first two lines are configured, there's just no path for Bertuzzi to leapfrog anyone. He's not passing Brad Marchand to take the spot on the first line with Bergeron. You're not breaking up Marchand and Bergeron. And on the second line, the Czech line with Pavel Zacha on the left side with Krejci and Pasternak, they've been too good together as well. So I don't see Bertuzzi jumping onto that line. I think he's locked into the third line spot. So I think that's going to be, again, boon in real life for the Boston Bruins, but it's going to hurt Tyler Bertuzzi's fantasy value.